The Gun Shop Show, the Gun Shop Show. What is it? We don't know. The Gun Shop Show, the Gun Shop Show. Here we go, it's the Gun Shop Show.
Ruger Security 9 LTO exclusively from Liberty Tree Guns. Here we go. Not too bad. People are going to love this thing. Welcome. This is the Gun Shop Show. I'm your host, Eli Bruton, owner of Liberty Tree Guns, where we are coming to you live from the sales floor. I'm joined, as always, by my main man, Trevor, in the control room.
Hello.
And we got a brand new Logan cam.
Hi, guys.
And I decided to join him up with the brand new suppressor kiosk, and we're going to keep that in the screen at all times. What you heard at the open of the show was us shooting the brand new exclusive firearm from Liberty Tree Guns, which is the Ruger Security 9 LTO. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to give away some free hats. We also have a guess the count of ammo contest with some 9mm that you can win. But the most exciting thing about today's show is our guest. We are joined by Roy Huntington, the editor of American Handgunner magazine. Trevor, do we have him on the line?
Yes, we do.
There we go. Welcome, Roy.
It's good to be here, guys. I appreciate the courtesy.
Real quickly, tell us who you are, and then I decided I wanted to have you join us for the whole show to cover news and everything.
Well, that'll be fun. Roy Huntington, I've been editor at American Handgunner for almost 20 years now, and it's more of a gift to me than anything, I think, and I count my blessings every day. As I tell people, it beats selling paint at Walmart, and we've been in business with American Handgunner since the late 70s, and have pretty much been the #1 handgun-related magazine in the industry ever since, and it's just a lot of fun every day, I promise you.
That's awesome. I know we get it here at the shop, and we have people talking about articles. You can tell when you showcase something in your magazine, we know about it because people come in with it in hand showing they want to see where this thing is that they've read about. So it's going to be great to have you here, and we'll break down some of your exciting background. And yeah, I know you were a cop for a long time. I have a background in law enforcement, so we'll have some fun today.
Cool. I'm in.
All right. One of the interesting headlines I want to cover today is the fact that the ATF has recently allowed, in light of the coronavirus situation, drive-through gun sales. I think we have a clip on that.
Licensed gun stores can stay open amid stay-at-home orders if they operate via curbside service from the properties where their businesses are established. On Friday, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives said gun retailers can sell guns and ammunition through permanent or temporary drive-thrus or walk-up windows. The Bureau said all parts of the sales process, from identity verification to paperwork, must be conducted outside the actual store. ATF's ruling comes after debates on whether gun stores should be classified as essential businesses during the coronavirus pandemic. Gun rights groups have sued governors for designating gun stores as non-essential and ordering them to close, calling it a violation of America's Second Amendment rights. The Department of Homeland Security updated its classification of gun retailers as essential businesses in late March. However, that classification is only meant to be advisory, and states can add or take away businesses as they see fit. According to CNN, retailers say the pandemic has led to an uptick in gun sales. The FBI also reported a 41% increase in background checks conducted over the last month. For Newsy, I'm Gage Jackson.
So an uptick in business would be a major understatement as far as what we've experienced and what we've heard around the industry. Roy, have you been hearing similar things?
You know, I really have. We also publish Shooting Industry magazine, which I hope you get there in the store. Because of that, we hear from a lot of dealers across the country, and what we're seeing is that, unlike when the Obama craziness happened and all the shooters came in and bought guns and ammo because they were afraid that the Democrats were going to take guns away, what most of the dealers are seeing now, at least from what they've told us, are they're seeing literally the new gun buyer, you know, the sort of liberal Democrat or the centrist guy who's never really been interested in it, and they're coming in buying guns. But it's also presented a challenge, and one of the challenges is I had one dealer tell me, was he said, I'm trying to talk some of these people out of buying guns because they have no training, they don't know where to go, they don't know what to do. The ranges are closed. As many of the gun stores said, I can't even offer training right now. So it's a real interesting quandary that many of you dealers are in right now.
Yeah, and we're really fortunate being in Southwest Missouri because we very rarely get a customer that is that new and doesn't have a friend or family member that it's tied to gun ownership in some way. So we sold to a ton of brand new, shooters, but almost all of them had their brother-in-law, their uncle, their friend from work saying, once we get this, I'm going to take you out and show you. So that's a benefit of being here in Southwest Missouri where almost everyone's pro-gun and there's a gun owner under every rock.
One of the really fun things, though, and I had Dave Workman write an article about this just a couple of days ago, is that most or many of these people who are coming in with no gun buying experience are flabbergasted by the fact that it actually takes time. There's a background check, and it costs money, and some of them are having to wait several days because of the NICS backlog. And so they thought that it was like you go to your local schoolyard and buy a gun.
Yeah, obviously there's situations where the NICS background check is pretty instant, within minutes, however long it takes to enter it, and then you get a yes. But on occasion there's a delay through no fault of, it's called a delay for further review, and sometimes it's when people have a name similar to someone else. 90% of the time our customers, they know it's out of our control and they're happy to wait 3 days. Some guys they get delayed on every purchase and they just plan for it. But we saw some of these new buyers that were impatient. They were calling, well, what's the deal? What's taking so long? My cousin bought a gun and it didn't take 3 days. All right. The next thing I want to cover is just exactly how impactful is this uptick in business. And as I was reading an article from guns.com, I found some interesting tidbits that I'd never seen broken down, and that was what is the overall economic impact of the firearms industry. And I thought this would be something to get Roy's perspective on, being in the industry for so long. But one of the talking points that stood out to me is that it's a $60 billion a year industry in the United States, which is sizable, but there are 300,000 people who work full-time in the gun industry, and I don't know if I expected that number to be higher or lower, but I saw where in 2008 it was estimated that only 166,000 people worked in the gun world, and now it's upwards of 300,000.
Well, I attended my first SHOT Show, which is the Shooting and Hunting Outdoor Trade Show, in 1987. And at the time, we thought it was this huge, a show that we could barely manage to deal with. And I believe at the time it was about 500 exhibitors. Well, the last SHOT Show had 2,400 exhibitors, and 60 some odd thousand people.
It's unfathomable. I've only been to one SHOT Show. I only had a chance to make it out to one. I've got young kids at home, so it's hard to break away for a whole week. But it is almost indescribable in the massive amount of gun stuff and people from all over the world. Everybody who's anybody in the gun world, and some that aren't, are there. And they've broken it down where if you wanted to visit every booth, it's square miles of booths of gun stuff, you could only spend 10 seconds or less at every booth if you wanted to visit every single one at SHOT Show.
Well, it's true. It's about 12 miles. As a member of the media, I tend to go from meeting to meeting with clients, Remington, Winchester, Booker, people like that. And so I don't get a lot of time to actually wander around and just kind of see what's new and stuff like that. But a lot of people come up to our booth, and so it's a kind of a clearinghouse for trends and what's happening and what's not happening. And so what I see is basically there's a core group of industry employees, and I don't know what that number would be right now, but probably about 30% lower than the highest numbers are. And that number tends to grow and ebb depending on the economy. I think what we're seeing with this turnaround is, unlike in the past where manufacturers and many dealers overproduced and overbought based on the buying spree, this go around, manufacturers and most retail dealers especially sort of maintain their inventory, keeping in mind two things were going to happen. The first is, yes, there'll be a run on product. Everyone's going to be out of 9mm and .223 ammunition. But they didn't buy another 300,000 rounds because they knew it was finite. They also realized that there's probably going to be a slump in business now because everyone has basically spent their gun money, including the new people who've never bought a gun before. So business is probably going to be flat for a little while right now. So it's, it brings up an interesting point too, is that we're the only industry that will vote themselves out of business because we vote conservative, and having conservatives in office is the worst thing for our industry.
It's the worst thing for business. You're absolutely right. And we're coming up on a break, but that's what I wanted to talk about is, it's unfortunate that we're going through the times that we are, but in some ways it was a welcome uptick because we saw a lot of places hurting and folding because we had big boom and the bubble burst and the election didn't go the way that we thought. So we're going to come back after the break. We're going to keep talking about these trends in the industry and break down some more headlines. Thanks for joining us on News Talk KZRG. Hey everybody, Eli here, and I'm really excited to tell you that the Gun Shop Show is now brought to you by one of my favorite places on earth, located here in my hometown of Carthage on the beautiful historic square, and that is the Emporium on the square and the Woodshed. It's a art gallery, an event center, a gift shop. They have art classes, and probably my favorite part is the burger and steak joint in the back. But when you walk in, you're in this 150-year-old great big building, and there's very unique Americana artwork from famous artists like Andy Thomas. They handle a lot of his originals and do framing for him. And it just has this incredible old school vibe, and you can feel the history coming through. You have to check out the art gallery, but then as you work your way to the back, into my favorite part, that's the Woodshed. I've spent a lot of nights and had a lot of great meals in here. They've got burgers. They have catfish. I love their catfish. It's excellent. Chicken and waffles even. It's incredible. And it's also a music venue. So this year or last year, we got to see my favorite band of all time, the Ben Miller Band. This is a photo that you're seeing that I took. And the ceiling was literally raining down. They were rocking so hard. But the best thing about it is not only is this my favorite place on earth, but it's owned by one of my favorite people on earth. That's Cherry Babcock. And she is the real deal. She takes care of her customers, whether they're hosting an event or catering or having a special art class or just their normal business of selling burgers and steaks. Check out the Emporium on the Square and the Woodshed.
Commercial idea for Netfishes. I walk into the commercial director, we'll call him's office. I say to him, "Hey, how's it going?" He replies, "Good. We got your commercial ready to go. Are you ready to listen?" "Yeah, but before I do, I have an idea I want to float by you." He says, "Okay," a bit sarcastically. And I say, "All right." And I clear my throat, and I start singing this song, something similar. Netfishes, we're all really good friends, hanging out and stuff, and having memories to talk about when we were young. Netfishes. And I say the business name wrong, like fishnets. He replies, "That's terrible. And you didn't even say the right business name at the end. It's your business." Then it cuts to Netfishes, where we can all be friends. And commercial.
Welcome back to the Gun Shop Show. If you just joined us, we are here with Roy Huntington, editor of American Handgunner magazine. We're going to continue to talk to him, but I wanted to let you know about your chance to win some free merch. And I shouldn't say win, it's just get free merch. This is not a giveaway. You don't have a chance to win this. You can literally just go get one of these hats for free at libertytreeguns.com. All you have to do is go to the Liberty Tree merch section, and there's a listing for each color of these hats, and I'm showing them on screen. I have a whole bunch of them. I have some white American flag hats and some blue ones. Just go there. They are listed there for $0. If you're local, you can pick them up for free, or you can pay just the shipping, and we'll send you a free hat. Roy, before the break, we were talking about how sometimes we vote ourselves out of business in the gun industry.
It's a crazy thing, and I honestly don't know any other industry that does the same thing. At the last SHOT Show, or not last SHOT Show, but at the SHOT Show when the president election was going on, there were TVs up and radios playing and things like that. And I had to laugh because when the word came out, basically, that Trump had won, there was this, the entire SHOT Show erupted in cheering and, because we really thought it was going to be ugly. And I thought it was ironic because on one half, we were going like, yeah, if the liberal Democrats get in, it's going to be a boon for the industry. And then on the other side, we were going, oh, no, crap, we don't want that to happen. And so when, quote, the good guy got elected and everyone erupted, well, then it got quiet because we realized what we had just done. We basically voted the entire industry out of business for the next 4 years. And it kind of turned out to be that way if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Yeah, that's been a little bit of a welcome spike. But I wanted to back up and sort of explain to the listener who you are and what American Handgunner magazine is. So I want to take a second to read your bio. Tell us a little bit about how you got to today, and then tell us more about your magazine. But it says, Roy Huntington had a 24-year career as a police officer in San Diego, and after retirement became the editor of Cop magazine. He then accepted a position as editor of American Handgunner, and works in the gunzine arena, becoming the editorial director for Guns Magazine, Handgunner, and American Cop magazine. That's quite a history there, Roy.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was a quirk of fate more than anything. So when I was a police officer, say late 70s, early 80s, I just wanted to write. And I always wanted to be a photographer. I always wanted to be able to write. And fiction's tough to do, trust me. And so I wrote about what I knew, which was police work and guns and tactics and body armor and things like that. And I was fortunate enough to get an article sold in 81 or 82. And then the rest just happened. I pushed hard. I was really passionate about it. I learned how to take pictures. I learned what editors wanted. And then I wrote through my entire police career. I kind of built what I was going to do when I retired from there in 98. I slid kind of sideways into the industry to Bianchi International as our LE sales manager and marketing manager. And then I was offered the job of editor of Police magazine, and then which is what I wanted to be doing. So I took that. And I was writing for American Handgunner Guns magazine throughout these years.
So then you spent a year or two at Police magazine, and then you got offered the job at American Handgunner and went over there. So, I mean, it's a really cool publication. Only recently have long guns caught up to handguns at all. For a long time, we sold probably 4 handguns to every long gun. And so having a magazine that's tailored to handgun shooters, which it's been a growing segment, is really fun to pick that up, and that you're going to be, mostly covering those topics, and it's a really cool publication.
Well, I think it's a little easier for us, too, because being just about handguns, and we started in 1976 because whenever we would run a handgun article in Guns magazine, which we published since 1955, the readers would really be interested. And so we just thought, well, we should probably do a handgun magazine. And initially, everyone said it was going to be a waste of time and no one would like it. But from the very first issue in 1976 until today, it's been extremely successful. And it's easier than doing a general interest magazine, because if you have a magazine like, guns magazine. There's shotguns and rifles and handguns and all, reloading and ammo and all kinds of things, hunting. With handguns, it's catering to a single market, which is people who love handgunning. And gosh, they are passionate about it, and they are not afraid to spend their money.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I just enjoy it.
How do people get your magazine? It's a physical magazine as well as online, right?
Well, everyone's saying print is dead. That is, the words of my death are premature, because I'll be honest with you, we just did a promotion for more subscribers and we were overwhelmed. Print is not dead. The secret is high quality print. And I know anyone can look at the magazines they get. If they're still good quality, you're still interested and you want to get them. The things online are not special because they're usually free and they're available everywhere, and you can pick up your phone and have it. If you actually pay for something like a printed magazine or a book, you invested something in it, so it's kind of special to you, so you tend to keep it. I was very surprised when I sent readers a note one time in my insider column, and I said, I'm looking for a complete set of American Handgunner from the first issue to the most current issue. I wanted to have a reference collection for myself. And I thought I'd get people with partial, hey, I've got these 3 years or something. But I had dozens of people come forward and say, I've got every issue since the very first one.
Wow,
and if you'd like to have them, I was stunned. They keep them.
And that shows
so
you
that
the
made
difference.
me very pleased.
I'm a tech guy, and I do try to lean into the trends of the internet, but I'll tell you, when I want to read something, I want to hold paper in my hand, because I do it when I want to relax. I do it when I don't want to be staring at a screen. So it is nice to have that tangible thing in your hands.
What we found a lot of it too is it's vetted. I mean, in other words, there's a mean old guy like me who makes sure that everything goes in the magazine is honest and true, right, and well written, and we have good photos, and it's not baloney, and we're not mean to clients for no reason. And just like on your show here, you've got production people, and you've got you, and you're overseeing everything, and so it's not like I'm just going to
draw the other conclusion and say that you're not a bunch of hooligans on the internet like us.
Well, but you know what I mean. All you have to do is tune into YouTube and see some talking head acting the fool. And right, so with a show like yours, or for instance our magazines, that's just never going to happen. And I hear that from readers all the time, and they talk about our digital products the same way, the how-to videos and things like that. They say, well, we know that you guys are vetting it, we know that you guys want to make sure that it's high quality, and so we trust you.
We're coming up on a break, and you mentioned digital copy. I think you have something for our listeners, is that right?
Oh, I do. Absolutely. I leaned on the home team there, and I was able to schmooze a free PDF download on our survival special edition that we published. And so if you go to AmericanHandgunner.com/KZRG, you can download a free PDF copy of this special edition. And it's a book. It's a thick, perfect bound kind of book looking thing, full of pictures, full of articles, kind of a lot of how-to stuff. I think it's about a $15 retail thing that we saw on the newsstands. So
it's a really nice article. So thank you for that gift to our listeners. We're coming up on a break. We'll be right back on News Talk KZRG. Hey, podcast listeners and live stream viewers, I wanted to let you know that the Gun Shop Show is made possible by our friends at Mid-America RV. Being in the customer service industry, I have a really high standard for how customers are treated. Mid-America RV does it right. I've got my RV through their dealership, and I've taken it all over the country. We made it to South Padre Island. We've gone to Colorado several times. And if you've ever owned an RV, you know there's a lot that comes with it. So who you get it from matters. And it's extremely important that you have support after the sale. And here's some photos of my trips to Colorado that we took in our RV from Mid-America RV. They're located just outside of Carthage. They have a really vast inventory, and they are home of the lifetime RV warranty. So I believe they call it a forever warranty. So I urge you, if you're in the market for one, to check them out. It's a really fun and can be very affordable way to get your trips in. So visit them at midamericarv.com. We appreciate their support of the Gun Shop Show. And as you can see, they have a large inventory selection of trailers and fifth wheels, and they specialize in those. They don't carry any motorhomes or anything like that. So if you are in the market for a tow-behind RV of any size, from a little teardrop to a full-size trailer, I urge you to check out Mid-America RV. Now, we weren't sent any promotional material, so we decided, and this is from genuinely from my personal experience. There's a trip of me in Colorado in my Surveyor that I got from Mid-America RV, and so we decided we would make our own commercial for these guys since we believe in them so much. So, Trevor, I assume that you are prepared with material, right?
I'm going to jingle on the spot.
You didn't make one ahead of time.
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Right.
And I'm actually a little nervous right now.
Can you put it on the lot?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right. Let's hear it.
Let's refresh. And here we go.
They may not appreciate this.
Mid-America RV, the San Francisco treat.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm not so hot at the making up of stuff, so I borrow from other people.
Okay, well, the point is, Mid-America RV will treat you right. If you're in the market for a travel trailer or fifth wheel, check out Mid-America RV.
Hey everybody, it's Eli at Liberty Tree Guns here at 530 West Fur Road in Carthage, Missouri, and I want to show you a gun collection that we just bought from an individual. A little bit of everything in this one. We wrote a check for 22 guns. Got some newer lever guns, cool Henry Silver Boy, some older shotguns. This is a cool old 410 double barrel. This was a good mix. There was some newer type stuff, some old stuff here, some black powder, some cool Colt, black powder revolvers, newer Rugers, Mark IIIs, PMR 30, Taurus Judge, couple of Taurus revolvers, got a long slide 1911 right here, and then got this cool Llama 45. We just sold the sister to that gun in 38 Super. This particular individual, this was half the collection that we bought from him. And so I just want to remind you that we pay top dollar for entire collections, so we'll buy one gun or 100 from you, and we can offer consignment, where we sort of establish what these guns are worth and we pay you out when they sell. Or in the case of this one, we offered consignment, we discussed it, and then we offered a cash price, which was a little bit less than the consignment settlement price, but it's quick. It was one check and we paid those all out to this individual. And probably the biggest, baddest, coolest one of the whole mix was this Bushmaster BA-50. So we have everything from little antique 22s to 50 cals in this one collection. I want to remind you that we'd love a chance to buy your collection. Find us at libertytreeguns.com or here on Fur Road in Carthage, Missouri. See you soon.
Welcome back to the Gun Shop Show. If you just joined us, we are joined by Roy Huntington of American Handgunner magazine. And before we go back to talking to Roy, I wanted to tell you about a contest we have going on at Liberty Tree Guns on our Facebook page, and that is Guess the Ammo Count. So Logan, if you're listening on the radio, you can't see this, but on our live stream, we have Logan, and the camera's on him. He's got a Jug O 9mm, which, if you're...
What do they call those things?
The shape of the container?
Yeah, like I remember like eating at...
it's a wine flask.
A wine flask.
It reminds me of what salsa comes in at a Mexican restaurant.
That too? Exactly. I was thinking OJ from Denny's or something.
Yeah.
It sounds really good.
Anyway, we've got one of those full of 9mm. So if you're listening on the radio, you need to go to facebook.com/LibertyTreeGuns. Look at the picture. Guess in the comments how many rounds of 9mm you think are in the container, and we will give the closest guess all of that ammo for free. So
we're going to need an audio sample of that for our listeners, Logan, so they can guess. Can you shake it in the...
Shake it, yeah. See if they can...
guess by the sound?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Shake it.
Sounds like bullets. All right, Roy, I have some questions for you that I would love to get answers on.
Sure.
With all of your perspective into the industry, what really has your attention right now? What is a new gun or product that really might be a game changer or is significantly different than things we've seen in the past?
Well, with the advent of CNC, pretty much every new gun is a good gun with very rare exceptions. And I know readers take offense sometimes when they see that we get a new gun, a new Ruger, new something, even a price point gun. And darn if it doesn't work great and is certainly more than adequate in accuracy, and the price point is, some amazingly affordable point. And unlike the, quote, good old days where things were hand fit and they produced less of them, today's guns are probably the best they've ever been as far as mechanics and engineering and design. And so I don't think we need to look and say, oh, well, this particular gun, beats everybody else. What I see is that affordable, small to mid-sized personal protection guns are just at the epitome of what people need and expect. I mean, they're just the best they ever are. I see things today that I would have given my right arm for 30 years ago. I mean, they were dream guns, a pocket 380 that actually worked. A 9mm, high capacity duty auto for less than $800, which is what we used to pay for SIGs and things like that. So,
well, that brings me actually to my next question, which is, so obviously you do have some respect for some of the more affordable guns, it sounds like. So how far do you go with that? What is too cheap?
Well, and you bring up a very good point. And when I retired from the police department, I went to work for Bianchi International, the holster company. I was their law enforcement sales manager, and then I was their marketing director. And at the time, we were thinking we wanted to get in and make the cheap gun belts. And so the company president went to China. We set up the distribution system. We had manufacturers. We got our first container full in. And we were attempting to basically go after these price point police duty gear. Unfortunately, it drove. At the time, that market was turning into a commodity market. It was the beginning of the sewn goods for police work, and this would have been in the late 90s. And so what we found ourselves doing is that we were competing at the very lowest price point with people who knew how to do it much better than we did. And so we made the objective decision to just don't do that. Let's make good quality leather good quality molded nylon gear, and let the price point stuff go elsewhere.
And the rest is history for their company, because they're still known for what you just said, high quality leather products.
Yeah, exactly. In other words, and I think that's something that we need to remember, that the manufacturers today have to stay the course. We see press releases saying, "Oh, we're cutting SKUs so we can focus on our core business." And I think those are the companies that end up staying, and they end up being successful. What I worry about is that we have many companies who drive that market down to the lowest common denominator. And like you say, when you see a brand new Ruger or Caltech or Sky Taurus or something that are selling for $199, well, everyone's making 0.5% or 1% or something, and I don't think we're doing ourselves a favor. And I think the buying public has to be aware of that. Is that let's equate it to something that everyone understands. Let's say you call your plumber, you get a plumber who's willing to work for $5 an hour. Well, you're getting $5 an hour worth of stuff too, and you're not helping the industry. So I think by buyers too eager to shop down to the lowest price point, it certainly hurts the dealer, it hurts the manufacturer, it hurts the industry, it hurts the economy, it hurts everything. And I think being willing to pay just a little more for something that's a little nicer makes better sense in the long run. Having said that, when I owned a retail gun store, it was in the early 80s. It was just the very beginning of Spyderco and some of the little fancier knives, the early days of Buck 110 folders and things like that. And there were people who would buy a $5 pocket knife, and nothing I could say or do could get them to buy a $50 pocket knife. I'm sure you see that behind the counter. And so there will always be people who will only be willing to pay $199 for a gun. But I think for those of us who are willing to pay more than that, we need to encourage manufacturers to continue to excel and to make sure that they know that we're willing to pay for quality and innovation.
Yeah, and you're right. We do have that customer base. We have to make sure we don't. It's so easy as a seller of things to get drugged down in the mud with not only with other retailers that are willing to sell for nothing, with brands that are willing to sell their product for very little or no profit margin, and it's a bit of a race to the bottom, and it kind of makes for boring inventory and boring things happening in the industry. But there is an exception with one thing that I think is really interesting just from a novel aspect. Have you seen the Altor single shot pistols?
Actually, I have one, and I just did a video. If you go to FMG Publications on YouTube and go to our homepage there, you'll see I did about a 1.5 or 2 minute section of it. And I know what you're thinking, and I thought the same thing. I know the manufacturer; he's kind of a character, and I reached out to him. We've exchanged some emails and stuff like that. And when I first got that gun, I did the same thing you did. I went, "Well, this is stupid. It looks like a toilet paper roll holder.
Looks like a heat gun,
right?"
Yeah,
it looks like you put a hot glue stick in the back.
I realized that wasn't the case at all.
Well, we are coming up on another break, but I want to just, for radio listeners, I've got a little funky single shot pistol. You can see it if you join the feed on facebook.com/LibertyTreeGuns, or you can go to, what was your link there, Roy?
Oh, just go to YouTube if you'd like, and then look up FMG Publications, and you'll see all our videos there, and you'll see the Altor pistol. It actually was a lot of fun to shoot, and I know it breaks all the rules, and it's crazy, and it's a $120 gun, I think.
Right. Yeah,
but
$129.
at least if you have one of those, you don't break the. Make sure you have a gun rule, if you're involved.
Right, yeah, that's what we loved about it is, and for those watching, you can see me take it apart. You load one round, and then you pull back. I think the firing mechanism is the most interesting thing about this thing. You pull back on the trigger and then let it go to fire it. But it's funny that I have all these things slated to talk to you about, and then you're such a great guest that you're already pinging on these points before we get to them. And in fact, we've already burned up almost a whole segment. But when we get back, we've got a little bit of housekeeping to do. We try to keep up with our customers, and we try to answer their questions. One of the things we try to do is listen to their voicemails and get back to them. And we haven't had time to do that this week. So if you don't mind to hang out while we check our voicemail, we would really appreciate it.
You're a brave man.
Our customers definitely keep it interesting. So we're getting ready to go to break on News Talk KZRG. And when we get back, we will be checking the voicemail. Hey, Trevor, I need you to take over singing for me because we have a very serious commercial to make about a very serious topic. Do you think you could sing Arms of an Angel while I talk over it?
I can do it for you. Ladies
and gentlemen, we are facing a very serious crisis. And that crisis is that at Cave Gang Pizza and Pub, my very own wood-fire pizza restaurant and pub, perfectly good beer is at risk of going to waste because we haven't been able to sell it. But you can help Thanks to some new regulations by the state liquor board, we can now sell liquor out the drive-through window. In order to save this beer from going bad, we need you to come to Cave Gang Pizza and Pub and buy beer through the drive-thru. You can do that by bringing your own sturdy, leak-proof container. And now you can cut to me, Trevor. I need to deliver the final. I couldn't get you to start, now I can't get you to stop. Very well done. All right, guys. In all seriousness, beer is going to go to waste. It's going to go bad before we can sell it. They did lift some restrictions on the sale of alcohol before. You could never sell draft beer through the drive-thru. Now they've said if you buy a meal and if we put it in a sturdy leak-proof container with tamper-proof tape sealing it, that you can buy beer and take it home with you through the drive-thru. So come to cavegangpizza.com, call in your order. Right now, we're closed for carryout and delivery only, or open for that only, I should say. Make sure you come in, get your beer, order it. You can get beer and mixed drinks. We have to put it in your supplied container with tamper-proof tape, and only you can save perfectly good beer. Welcome back to the Gun Shop Show, where we're coming to you from the sales floor of the best gun store in the world. I'm Eli Bruton, your host, owner of Liberty Tree Guns, where we're coming to you from and joined by my excellent crew. I have the best crew of any gun store, and we've proven that in how popular we've become. We were fortunate enough to win the 4 states' favorite gun store, and we just do that by striving to treat our customers how we would want to be treated. And I can't take the credit for that. The guys do such a great job with that every day. We're joined by Roy Huntington of American Handgunner magazine, and we've been having a really good conversation. But I wanted to ask your opinion on something, Roy. How do you feel about optics on handguns?
You know, I think it's another wonderful thing about modern technology. Truly. As a matter of fact, I just got a new mount, a company named AimTech, I think it's called. It replaces the right grip panel of a 1911, and you can put a red dot sight or an optic on it. And I got it because I can't see anymore. So when I'm testing a 1911, for instance, at 25 yards or 50 yards, having an optic really allows me to actually shoot the gun up to its capabilities. Whereas if I had to rely on iron sights with these 65-year-old eyes, forget it. I think it's a boon for we boomers, and it also is a great teaching tool for people. And I think for a lot of people who are willing to devote the time and energy to train with them, I think they're exceptional tools for defensive pistols.
Well, I was resistant to them when I first saw them come onto the market. I thought, I don't want to trust electronics, and I could shoot just fine with iron sights. But, you know, like so many things, don't knock it till you try it. I got a chance to shoot some handguns that had an optic mounted on it, and I've since come full circle where I get it, the speed with which you can acquire a target, not only, and it's fun, you can hit it further distances just because you can see that dot where you may not be able to focus on iron sights depending on eyesight or sunlight or whatever the challenges are. But when we opened the show, that clip you heard was me shooting our very first exclusive firearm from Liberty Tree Guns, and that is the Ruger Security 9 LTO. And if you're on the live stream, I'm holding it up here. The Security 9 is Ruger's sort of price point, entry-level pistol. They've got the Ruger American, and they've got some more expensive guns, but what I wanted to do is bring the premise of an optic-based pistol into a price point that people can afford. So these are available in pre-order for $4.99, which a lot of guys are spending that on just the optic. You know, they're spending $4.99 on an EOTech or something, and then another $600-700 on a pistol. They've got a $800 pair. You're able to buy the Ruger LTO Security 9 LTO and the optic for $499.
I think that's a solid value at every level. I'm a big fan of Rugers. I know them. I've been there. I've owned them my whole life. And these guns in particular have really tested well and showed that they have long legs. And I think putting an optic on it is a natural progression. That's a real good price point. I think also, while we're talking about optics and a gun like that, is that a lot of people don't realize, depending on the optic, you can actually have the dot be above the rear sights, but also have the rear sights still be sighted in. And so that gives you that. It's not the same as co-indexing, but it still gives you that backup in case the optic does fail for some reason. So I think you're covered in both sides.
This particular optic has a faint line like a rear sight, and it actually aligns pretty well with the front sight. So if you're just looking through the glass, even if the dot weren't there, you can see and align. So if you're not watching, if you're just listening on the radio, you can go to libertytreeguns.com. Just type in the letters LTO if you want to see this gun. We'll also drop a link in the comments. Let us know what you think. If you want to pre-order now, we're having the first batch of these. There'll be an exclusive run for the first batch. You'll get your hands on the first ones. But I wanted to play that clip of me shooting it. We went over to the indoor range and did a little bit of a target shooting with the action target system over there.
I just wanted to say, Eli, that as an inexperienced shooter, would have to say that firearm felt really good in my hand. It fired really well. How many rounds did we shoot through that?
About 250, 300.
And we didn't have one issue with it?
Not one malfunction in 250 or 300. I'm not sure how many boxes, but we threw away a bunch of empty boxes when we got done.
Yeah, we sure did. All right, I'm going to throw this video up, guys.
You see the target going back if you're listening on the radio. And you can see how quickly I'm able to get on target and hit center mass pretty reliably. And I'm bringing it up and engaging the target each time, bringing it from a ready position down by my hips, getting a sight picture. Even just with the target spinning like that, I was able to put rounds in a couple second intervals. So I'm very excited to be able to bring a optic ready, not just optic ready, but optic equipped pistol for the $499 price point, because I think it's going to introduce a group of shooters that, $800-900 is out of their budget right now, but they can see if they like an optic on a pistol pretty easily at a pretty good price point. See, I warned you this might happen. From time to time, we have to check our voicemail, and that's what that sound means. Roy, I apologize to do this, but would you mind if we took care of some housekeeping and just went ahead and checked our voicemail?
No, hopefully it's somebody who we know. Let's see.
Yeah, you left us a voicemail last week on the show letting us know that you were going to come on, which I really appreciate, but we don't control what goes into this voicemail box, so anything can happen. And I got to get my voicemail phone out, and it's under the desk here, so give me just a second.
Here, I'll prepare myself here. Make it.
There you go.
You can't, because you can't put that black bar across my face.
There may be no coming back from this. But the other thing we do is we don't have a pre-recorded intro, so we like to set the tone for checking the voicemail. And the only way to do it is really to give it some enthusiasm. Trevor, do you have your drumsticks?
I do. I am ready.
What about your golden pipes? Are they ready to sing an intro?
Always.
So we just going to wing it, or do we know what we're doing?
I don't know. Let's just make something up as we go along.
Okay. Well, let me get my guitar out.
Okay. You let me know when you're ready, and I'll start the count.
Okay. All right, I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
Are you ready to check the voicemail?
All right. believe last time
That was intense.
It was. I mean, sweatier than the last time, but
For sure.
I think we got a name for that guitar so far. It was ZZ Top Gun.
ZZ Top Gun is what someone called it.
All right. You ready for that first mail?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Good morning. I was just calling in to tell you how much I really enjoy looking at all the used firearms that you get in, and I check daily to see what you get. My question is where do you get all these used firearms from? Thank you. Have a great day.
As you know,
This is Terry from Joplin.
oh,
Sorry
Abbott.
about that.
That's the next one. So, as you know, we specialize in used firearms here. We're one of the highest volume used firearm dealers in the country, according to gunbroker.com. And we get our used inventory from a variety of sources. So, one way is trade-ins. We do trade-ins every single day, isn't that right, guys?
That's correct.
Yeah, we get a bunch of guns in.
So Logan has done just about every job here at Liberty Tree Guns, but one of them's writing descriptions and taking photographs of the used firearms that we get in. A significant portion of those are from trade-ins. So if you're ever in Liberty Tree Guns and you have a gun that you want, and you also have another one that you don't want to keep, you can bring that in. We'll give you a trade offer on it and apply that balance towards your purchase. We also have a very successful consignment program. That's where we take your firearm in. We can do that remotely, or you can bring it in the store, and we take really high definition photos of it and list it on libertytreeguns.com. We put it out to our big email list. We put every single used firearm that we get in on Facebook, as well as on gunbroker.com. We have a over 95% success rate selling consignment firearms, and we'll also make you a cash offer on guns. So that is how we get the majority of our used guns. We buy collections from 1 to 100 guns. We've also bought out the inventory of entire stores at times. So we use several sources to get our used guns, but you'll always see a plethora of used guns at libertytreeguns.com. All right, let's see what's next in the voicemail box.
This is Terry from Joplin. I just had a question. Would like to know if you could explain briefly the difference between entry-level or lower-priced AR-15s and the high-end AR-15s. There's a large variation in price, and maybe you could kind of explain why. Thank you.
That is a great question, and we will come back and answer it on the live stream. We're out of time here on the radio, so make sure you join us at facebook.com/LibertyTreeGuns or on any of the major podcast players.
The Gun Shop Show, the Gun Shop Show. What is it? We don't know. The Gun Shop Show, the Gun Shop Show. Here we go, it's the Gun Shop Show.
All right, welcome back to the Gun Shop Show. This is the part of the show where things have a tendency to totally go off the rails. When we leave you on the radio, we stay here on the live stream on facebook.com/LibertyTreeGuns as well as YouTube. And we are still joined by Roy Huntington of American Handgunner magazine. And we were in the middle of checking our voicemail when we ran out of time. The question that we had in the last voicemail was there seems to be a big gap between high-end ARs and price point ARs. So you can buy an AR for $500 or you can buy one for $2,500. What is the difference? Roy, do you have any thoughts on that?
You know, it's a shame, but it's like everything in life, you get what you pay for. I've seen $500 ARs, and you have too. They're perfectly adequate guns, and they'll defend your family, and they'll do anything you want to do. You can do weekend competition with them. There's little need for anything better than that. If you want something better than that, then it's going to cost you more. Better trigger, better barrel, better accuracy. And I think it's as simple as that. But with today's technology, as we talked about earlier, if you buy a $500 or $700 AR from a name brand maker, I would beware of parts guns that the local, hooligan put together. But if you buy a single manufacturer name brand AR, you pay $500, $700 for it. You go to sleep at night. You're fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And then later on, you can either build on that one or go to your gun store and buy a fancier one.
Right. We appreciate you coming to Liberty Tree Guns because we sell them from $500 on up. But you can notice a difference. It is in the way they're made with the components that they are made. I have some examples of that. One of them being the main component of an AR, or at least the meat and potatoes, is the lower receiver. And a lot of AR receivers are either forged or cast, meaning they take aluminum and form it into the general shape of the AR lower, and then they only machine out the parts that they need. So it forms into a mold, comes out as close to this, and then machines out just the portions that need to be precise. Where as opposed to some higher end ARs use a billet lower receiver, and I think we have a little clip of one of those being machined. A billet receiver is made of a solid block of aluminum, and they literally carve out every aspect of that receiver from blank stock. And what that allows is, one, some uniqueness. So the manufacturer then has control, because he's not using a molded blank, to make it look and feel however he wants for their particular brand. So, and some manufacturers do both, like Black Rain Ordnance that's right here in our area. They have some rifles with a forged lower and some with a billet lower. But you can see this is a more time-consuming process. So if you're in the market for just a lower receiver, you can buy an Anderson for like, $59 that looks a lot like this arrow that I have in my hand, or you can buy a $300 billet lower receiver. So one is more costly to make, but people have made the argument that forged lowers are just as good, just as strong as the billet ones.
I can't remember the last time I had any modern gun break. I'll bet you can't either.
No, there's some videos of us really, really giving them a chance to break. I mean, throwing them in the mud, stomping on them, skipping them across the ground, and we couldn't get them to break. Our Ruger American review video where we torture test it, we've frozen in a block of ice and shattered it and threw it in the mud and put chewing tobacco and poured beer on it, and that thing never missed a lick. And you've touched on this earlier in our interview that really we're living kind of in good times. Prices are low and quality is high.
Well, I think people need to concentrate more on the fun of shooting and stop worrying so much about, do I have the right gun? Do I need better sights? Don't get focused on that. And I applaud what you do with used guns. I advocate, and I tell my readers all the time, because they'll say, I can't afford to have a $2,000, 1911. And I always say, well, what do you have sitting in your gun safe right now? And they'll send me a list of polymer pistols and 22s and broken shotguns and stuff like that. And I always say, well, sell off half of that stuff and go buy yourself one or two really good guns. And they are affordable if you do it that way.
We make that possible every day. We have people all the time that trade 4 guns for one. We've traded 5-6 guns for 1 or 2 higher end guns. And what's nice is we can take those firearms, regardless of condition, and pair them up with somebody that does have a use for it. So that's obviously what keeps the lights on here, and causes there to be interesting things to find, for our customer base. But I cannot begin to describe how much of a technical, I think we can say it because we're not on the radio, but I think I'll say pissing matches that I see happen between people that want to out internet each other of things that they've read on the internet of what's good and what's not. In fact, I have declined to hire applicants for the store because they think that they want to pontificate about the quality and the way that something's made, to the point where they're talking customers out of buying things based on being overly technical.
I've seen it my whole life. We call them gun store commandos, and they're their own worst enemies. And I've watched them literally talk someone out of buying a gun. But to get back to it, is I think I see this with readers. They'll obsess over something, and they'll be so worried about, well, should this folding sight, is that better than the folding sight I have, or I've got a 40 Smith & Wesson Glock, and is that good enough for home defense, or should I sell it and buy a 45? And I always tell them, it's like, why don't you just go buy some ammunition and go practice with the gun that you have and get good with it, and learn to use the sights you have on your AR-15 and do more rather than obsess and talk about it.
And once you do, once you get out there,
you do more, then you're going to learn more about what you want.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I've never in my adult life owned a bicycle, but I moved to an area where I kind of wanted one, and I was like, I know if I just go on the internet and put in what kind of bicycle do I need, I'm going to read myself into confusion. Instead, a friend just gave me one. I got on it, started pedaling, and it's probably going to take me weeks to figure out if I even want anything different, and I won't know until I actually use it.
Well, something too that I encourage readers to do is that rely on the advice of a trusted friend. And fortunately, a lot of them feel like they know us because they read us and see us videos, and they feel like we're friends, which we are. But if I needed to buy something that I didn't know about, I would call my friend up and say, hey, I want to buy a bicycle. I don't know about bicycles. What do you recommend? If he knows about them. And so that's, I think, where your store comes into play. So if someone is worried about something and they are obsessing about something, is just stop by and talk to you guys. You're professionals. You know what you're doing. You see it. You do it every day. They need to rely on you as a trusted friend. And then based on what they learn from you, they can make a buying decision.
Yeah, and we are different than a lot of stores. We have people come in and say, well, I was looking at this gun at another store, within driving distance of our store, and they told me it wasn't very good. And I thought, well, good for them, because you're here in my store instead. But, you mentioned an item that I think, to answer Terry's question on price point, that would be relevant, is you mentioned flip-up or foldable sights on an AR. Some of the very cheapest ARs don't come with any sights at all.
Well, not only is it a selling opportunity, but that's one of those confusing things that novice shooters don't know about. I'm actually compiling a list of videos that we made. We have something called Roy's Insider Tips, and it's basically how to load your gun, how to unload it, how to not, how to use your sights, how to pull a double action trigger, how not to shoot yourself in the foot, basically, because there are so many people, and we who are in the industry forget this, but when we casually throw out a term like, oh, that's a flat top, or, you need a red dot sight, well, that's cue the crickets. They have no idea what we're talking about. And so that goes back to rely on the advice of a trusted friend. And so if you don't have a guy who's a shooter who's your trusted friend, then you go to the next best thing, which is a professional group like you guys.
And honestly, that is what we wanted this show to be. It's not a echo chamber for gun guys to sit around and talk to each other in language that only they understand. We're making this show for you, so I want to take this time to remind you, if there's something that you want to see different, or if you find us doing that, talking about things you don't understand or talking over your head, ask us in the comments, leave us a voicemail. Make sure that this is something that you can understand and enjoy, because we're here to do this for you. But to answer your question, Terry, there's several ways that ARs, manufacturers want to get the price point down, because you can debate quality, you can debate features, you can debate all of that stuff. But if you're the cheapest or one of the cheapest, you're going to get a slice of the pie in terms of buyers. And so one of the things they do is sell them with no sights at all. So you'll find those cheap ARs will oftentimes not have one, or they'll have very minimal sights, and that's okay because that gives you options to go out and put an optic on. But most of your higher end guns, they're going to come with iron sights of some fashion. Triggers is another thing that Roy mentioned. A standard mil-spec trigger is just made up of the trigger itself and the sear and springs, and it's all sort of different pieces that are held in with pins. Some of your high-end ARs have something like a drop-in trigger. Let's see if I can get that close to the camera. If you look at how this is manufactured, the housing is made out of aluminum, everything is precision machined. You're going to have a very crisp, consistent 3.5 pound trigger pull, and that just takes more machine time, takes higher quality components, takes them longer in the machine shop to make that, and you're going to notice a difference. So you go out and shoot a mil-spec trigger out of a $499 DPMS, and then you go shoot this trigger, which, by the way, could be come factory on a higher end. This is actually an AK one, but you get the premise. It's a drop-in housing that all goes down inside your lower receiver. If you were to drop this in even that same AR, you're going to notice a difference in how it shoots and how it feels. And so everything from the barrel, honestly, whether or not you have a chrome line barrel makes a difference on how many rounds you're going to get out of that thing before it starts to be shot out. But a lot of people don't shoot that much, so they don't put thousands of rounds through their AR. So if you're not going to be that guy, you can take a look at some of those cheaper options with and still go into it with confidence.
I bought some game cameras the other day, and against my better judgment, I bought $39 game cameras, and I warned myself. I mean, literally, as I was picking them up, looking at them, I said, "Don't do this. Don't do this." But sometimes it's just too hard to resist the price. And so I was setting them up yesterday, and of course I got the first one out, and the very first thing it did, the mounting bracket broke in my hand. So I thought, all right, and so I did something else and I made it work. And then I opened up the other one, and right off the bat, the lens wouldn't work. It didn't actually function the way it was supposed to. So had I spent $59, I would have probably gotten two, Browning game cameras. It would have worked right off the bat. And I think there's a lesson there, and that is that sometimes you think you're saving yourself money on something, but really you're not. And then you end up spending more than that a second time for when you go back to get the better one, the one you should have got the first time.
Yeah, and I kind of have that same relationship with Harbor Freight tools. And
yes, so do I.
You go in there, and some of the stuff you get, you're like, hey, that's pretty good for the money. And,
a $5 socket set, yeah.
Right. And, I've bought tools, specialty tools that I'm going to use this twice in my life. And the real ones, the, so-called name brand ones are 4 times as much. So I'll buy the cheap one, and if I'm going to use it a couple times, it's okay. But I've also bought power tools from Harbor Freight where I bought a chop saw once, and I squeeze the little safety lever, squeeze it, blade comes on, moved it down. The second it touched the material, the blade stopped. It literally wouldn't cut. It just stopped. And so
on your first use,
yeah, like the motor didn't have enough power to cut the material. And thankfully we weed out those absolute junk, because there's some handguns that are literally so poorly made that I don't trust the safety of the person pulling the trigger. And
can I add something to that?
Yes.
People sometimes ask us, they say, hey, how come I don't see X gun in American Handgunner magazine? And I always tell them that I don't like to feature a gun and then trash it, because that doesn't do anything for anybody. That doesn't help the company, doesn't help the readers. But I always tell them, if you don't see it in American Handgunner magazine, there's probably a reason. So if they don't see it in your display case, there's probably a reason.
There's a reason. One, we don't want to do that to the customer. And two, because we're unlike most gun retailers and most big box stores, you'll notice you don't see the big sign plastered up next to the register that all sales are final. Because we don't leave you hanging. If you buy a gun from us and you go out and it doesn't shoot like it should, we help take care of you, whether we replace it, whether we help guide you through a warranty claim. We're with you. So when we would attempt to sell a gun that we can't trust, or we just know is likely to have all kinds of problems, you're not going to be able to count on it. Once we've experienced that or found that to be true, we don't even sell it, because we don't want to do that to you, and we don't want to do that to ourselves of creating an extra hassle and not being able to let you leave our store with confidence.
It's bad business, Yeah. Although I still go back and I still buy Harbor Freight tools.
Right? Yeah. I'm in there trying to make those judgment calls one at a time. And, we'll be honest with you. I've sold some ARs in the last year or so, used builds on Andersons and stuff, and I tell people, I said, look, the finish isn't going to be as nice. You can tell the sheen on the upper doesn't match the sheen on the lower, but function checks saying that it it appears to be working the way that it should. And so buy this. If you're the kind of guy that wants to tinker on this and turn it into a project and play with it until you can feel confident about it, then buy it, and it's going to be priced accordingly. But if it's a brand new gun on our shelf, you also can get things that are just a great value out of the box, like a Ruger AR-556 or the Smith & Wesson M&P 15. Those are under $700, and you get a lot of quality with those options.
Pretty turnkey. I look at the $500 1911, something like an Armscore basic pistol, or a Springfield Army mil-spec, versus a $3,000 custom gun. That there are customers who buy the $500 gun, and that's where this stays. In other words, they shoot it 50 rounds a year, and they have a 1911, and they're happy. And then other guys are only happy if they have a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 gun. But then there's that other guy, and he buys the $500 mil-spec, and then pretty soon he's coming back to you asking about custom sights, and then pretty soon he's asking about the Nighthawk custom new drop-in trigger group, and then so that's a project for him, and that's I think is really a fun thing to do with those entry-level AR-15s.
Absolutely, and you mentioned 1911s. I actually have what I believe is a very special old 1911 that before we get off here, I want to show you and get your thoughts on. But before we do that, we need to finish checking the voicemail. I think we're ready for number 3, and keep in mind, these are actual messages that our actual customers leave us. And I wondered if we would get any voicemails at all, but we have.
And they trickle in.
They don't disappoint.
Here we go.
Hey guys, it's Scott from Web City, and I got a poem for you. Roses is red, violets is blue. Buying guns means you will support Amendment 2. Thank you. Bye.
I don't really have anything to say about that.
Sometimes there are no words.
Kind of sounded like Cletus from The Simpsons, if you guys know who that is.
The only thing the only thing I can say is that is a real voicemail from a real customer that just took it upon himself to call us, which, by the way, is at 208-918-1776. You can get your questions in. We will play them back as we're doing now live on the air and answer them, or in the case of this one, just marvel in what we just heard.
In excellence.
All right.
Seclusion takes hold, I think, is what may be happening here.
That was the quarantine effect.
Yeah. Someone who didn't think he was a poet ended up being a poet, and all the more power to him. So.
All right, let's roll voicemail number 4.
This question's for my sugar daddy, Logan Jones. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that.
The question was, first of all, it was stated, this is for my sugar daddy, Logan Jones.
That's correct.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I want to start off by saying, how you doing? And then answer with a resounding no. Pineapple on pizza is disgusting. It's overpowering, and it's just not for me.
Yeah, when pineapple's on pizza, it's pretty much just pineapple.
Yeah.
That's all I taste is pineapple. And I don't want to taste fruit when I'm eating pizza.
Well, there's a phrase, technically it's a movie quote, that you guys have heard me use before. I use it all the time in the gun store. We talked about it earlier. When guys get overly opinionated, I remind them, it's not about you. In the words of Joe Dirt, it's not about you. It's about the consumer. And I happen to be a man who owns a pizza restaurant.
Mm-hmm. And you make those atrocities?
It's not
Franken pizzas?
It's not on the menu. Like, we don't have a Hawaiian. But I got to tell you, people ask for it. And when they do, we put pineapple on a pizza.
Do you put pineapple on anything else there?
No, it's just there for those people.
Just there for that pizza.
Those people exist.
But this is America, and there is freedom of choice.
Absolutely.
There
Plus,
is.
and if you're not careful, someone's going to call back with a poem about this.
We welcome that.
We welcome it, yeah. So I think we have time for one more voicemail. We will go ahead and roll that one.
Hi, this is Alan from Joplin, Missouri. My question is for Roy. First, I just want to say that I'm a big fan of American Handgunner magazine and that I read every issue. So, Roy, as the editor of a major gun magazine, you probably see a lot of gun stores and a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. Considering that, what's your opinion of Liberty Tree guns?
Okay, how much did you pay him?
Believe it or not, our customers have our back all the time. It's awesome.
No, I'll be honest with you. I'm a new friend, and I don't know a lot about the guys. But so far, I'm actually really impressed. I've been in gun stores across the country, and I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of dealers, probably thousands of dealers who come up to visit at the SHOT Show. And surprising, actually, to me, for being what many people would think a small-town gun store, they're really sophisticated. I mean, they know how to use technology. They have good inroads in the industry. They've certainly asked me very good questions about things that apply. And I think the thing that, and this is no baloney, honestly, I think that the thing that appeals to me most is that they have a genuine concern for trying to do the right thing for the customer. And I think that's the bottom line, because people are not stupid and they see that. And if they come in your store and there's some, gun store commando behind there, trying to tell them some baloney bullshit thing, they're not going to come back again. It doesn't matter how big your inventory is. It doesn't matter how cheap your prices are. So I think if you're honest with them and you make them understand that their interest is first on your agenda, they see that and they will be back. And that's what I'm seeing so far. And nobody paid me to say this.
We pride ourselves on our customer service, actually, and that while I was training Logan, that was a sticking point for us, is constantly reminding him that we want to make the best experience possible for our customers, no matter what.
Yeah, and we built our business on that. There was a lot of things that I didn't know when I got into this and I opened a gun store, but we went off our experiences other places. I said, why is it that you walk in a retailer and you feel like they don't want you there? All we got to do is make people feel like they're wanted, because they will be, because we need customers, but because we genuinely care about people. And then on top of that, the reason that one reason I think we have such a strong bond with our customer base is because of our concealed carry training. I took my experiences, as a police officer, the training that I'd had, and you spend 8 hours in a room talking about your life, talking about life and death with people, and you make really good friendships. And so we sort of learn what that relationship is like and then carry that on day to day. So even if I've just met you, you just walked in the store, you're from another state, you agree with me, don't agree with me, we're starting off with the assumption that we're going to become friends, and most of the time we do.
Well, I think in this world of everyone is just a number, when people come in your store and you recognize them and even call them by name, that's really big. And especially for older guys like me, it really is. I bank with a local bank because they know me. And I don't generally shop at Walmart because nobody there knows you and they don't seem to really care. So I applaud what you guys are doing. And I think having the ability to make that new shooter especially feel welcome is so critical. I've walked in gun stores across the country unannounced. If I'm on a trip or something, I always find a local gun store and stop in and just to kind of see what's going on and get the feeling of what's their inventory and things like that. And I can't tell you the number of times that exact thing has happened to me, where you walk in and they look up, they're sitting behind the counter, they're drinking coffee, and they look at you like you're an enemy. It's like, what are you doing in my store? And I think, well, you just missed out on a guy who maybe had $1,000 in his pocket and wanted to buy some collectible old Smith & Wesson.
Well, not only that is, I mean, you wouldn't say this because you're humble, but they don't know who they just did that to. The editor of a major magazine, that knows their inventory as well as they do, that could, if he had an exceptionally good experience, could relay that, could open up doors for them to miss the boat.
And I've actually, and I appreciate what you're saying, but I've done that. I've gone in a gun store and it was particularly well organized and the people were really, on the ball, and I felt really welcome. And, if it comes out in conversation, sometimes somebody will say, hey, aren't you the guy that's the editor of the magazine? And then we always shake hands. And
yeah, because you've been doing this a long time. You're recognizable. You have a lot of video content out there.
Well, I've certainly done my best to help businesses when I've had these positive experiences. I open doors, make introductions if I can, give them some industry insight or something. It's the rising tide floats all boats, and I don't know why a lot of people don't remember that. And that rising tide could be the next customer walking in the door, or the next voicemail you get on your red telephone.
It's funny because a lot of people, they don't get that. In fact, we had another store, they're out of business now, imagine that, but they had such a problem with us, even though they carried some categories we didn't, and we would send people out there and they had been around a long time, but they were so bitter that we had come onto the scene that they actually printed out like a clip art of a tombstone and wrote Liberty Tree, and it hung right behind the cash register, even though they had, a tenth of the customers we did, because they were not nice to their customers. That's literally, they viewed each other as enemies instead of, we could have referred customers back and forth in the categories that we didn't carry, but they didn't want to reciprocate, and then that's just, unfortunately, that's the mentality of certain segments of, and I would say any industry, but I would say it may be even a little worse in the gun industry than some others.
Well, especially in today's market, I think it behooves us all, customers included, to be open and be responsive to having the ability to work together. So, for instance, you could have joined forces with this other gun store and one or two others around, and maybe bought in bulk, from distributors. Or, I mean, there's so many more positive things that you could have done to help make the industry stronger, to better support the customer base here in town. And but instead, I see so many shoot themselves in the foot. But Frank Brownell, who's an old friend of mine, Brownell's corporation, the gunsmithing supply house, he's a dear old friend of mine, and I interviewed him 20 or 30 years ago, and I said, Frank, tell me about the industry and tell me about gun stores. And he was so funny. He said, I talked to a lot of gun stores in the industry. I talked to a lot of owners personally. He says, and whenever I call them, I always know if they're going to be in business when I call back the next year. And he said, just based on their attitude and how they're talking to me. And he said, one thing in our industry, and he was so funny, he looked at me like, he said, well, you want to know what's in our industry, what the trick is? And I said, yeah. He said, in our industry, if you sit on your ass, all you're going to do is get a sore ass. Now don't quote me on that, would you? Because I'm sure he'd be mortified if I said that in public.
Oh, well, he would know. Brownell's is synonymous with the gun industry and a source of things. They have a sister company now called Crow Shooting Supply that's a wholesaler that we buy a lot of stuff from, and Brownell's has been doing it right for a long time. So for him to identify that does not surprise me. Roy, before you go... sorry, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Do we have time for a quick 30-second story from him?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love it. We got plenty of time.
Right. Yeah. He said something else that I thought was so spot on, and it really applies to any consumer business. Was he said, I said, what's the secret to Brownells? And he said, the secret to Brownells is that we give our customers a dead pheasant. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? I don't really understand that. He said, well, when our customers call us up and they need a new front sight for their shotgun, they just want to go hunting pheasant, and they want to come home with a dead pheasant. And they don't care if the road's washed out or UPS didn't come, or the manufacturer went out of business, or that Mary Jane is out sick today. They just want a dead pheasant. He said, so our job is to make sure that they get their sight so they can go get a dead pheasant. And I thought that really is business 101 in almost any industry. When your customer comes in his front door, he just wants a dead pheasant. So he's got
he doesn't care.
Something he wants to do, some problem, some challenge, some idea. That's his dead pheasant, and he's looking to you to deliver that. And he doesn't care if your shipping was late. He doesn't care if your counter guy's out sick that day. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. He just wants a dead pheasant.
And as the operator of the business, it's so easy to get sucked into wanting to share your perspective, because we see this right now. While distributors, they're 2 or 3 weeks out. So when we order something for a customer that normally would be 3 or 4 day turnaround, there may be shutdowns from the quarantines in other states. Some of these companies are just that far behind, because we've seen, I'm always tempted to tell the customer, man, this is unprecedented times in the gun industry, but they don't care. I mean, it's okay, I think, to at least, when it's time to apologize, you haven't delivered a dead pheasant, to say,
right,
look, we did this and this and this, and this still happened. And
sure,
customers will, if you're honest, you don't make an excuse. You just say, we really haven't done this right for you. Here's why. And so let me ask you how I can make it right now. But I'm going to use that, because we're constantly working on how we can improve. I'm going to use that dead pheasant as a talking.
It's really true. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's absolutely true. And then if you sit on your butt, all you're going to do is get a sore butt. It's really true. Because if it's going to happen, it's going to be because of you and your team. The other time I was sitting across from this guy, he was 88 years old. He was an old Jewish guy, and he'd been in the business for like 65 years. He'd been a manufacturer, an importer, a distributor, a dealer, a factory rep. I mean, he has literally done everything. And I thought, holy cow, I'm going to talk to this guy. So we're sitting at dinner, sipping a little bit of good bourbon. And I said, Cy, what is the secret to doing business in our industry today? And I said, is it two-tier distribution? Is it dealer direct? What's the best way we can do business? And he was so funny. He looked at me, he took a sip of his bourbon. He said, you're asking me what's the best way to do business in the industry? And I said, yeah. And he looked at me and he goes, any way you can.
Absolutely.
And I thought, again, here I am, 66 years old, business 101, was just given to me again. And
it's funny you say that. When all of the ammo dried up, when this hit, and it happened almost overnight. I was in the hospital. My daughter was being born, and my wife was in labor, and I'm watching this SKU of ammo go out of stock, and this SKU, and I said, oh, we're getting ready to see a bad problem. So I'm trying to order as much as I can. But after that was all gone, we got the baby home, which, by the way, she's perfectly healthy and perfect. Mom is good. So but just to give you an idea, I was working in the hospital room, literally on trying to supply the store, supply libertytreeguns.com. But then as soon as I get home, I called a couple of guys that I had talked to. I'd had deals that I'd been working on to buy a whole inventory's worth of ammo. And I couldn't quite get together with them. I wanted to pay a little bit less. They wanted to get what they paid when their store was open, which was now closed. We couldn't quite get together. But when I couldn't buy it anywhere else, I finally said, you know what, I'm not going to be able to make as much on it, but I just want to have it for my store. So I literally drove to where this ammunition was. Trevor went with me. He can attest. We loaded up the bed of my truck to the point where the back of it is squatted down a couple of inches, full of bulk ammo, and we drove it back and put it on the shelves, and that was our way of doing it any way we could.
And you're still in business,
Thankfully.
And as Frank Brownell said, I know when I call back a year from now who's going to be in business and who isn't, and it's actually interesting because when I call dealers like yourself and I say, hey, this is Roy Huntington, I have some questions about the industry, do you have a minute to talk to me? And if the guy has all day and wants to talk to you, he's probably not going to be in business next year.
That's right.
Usually with a really effective businessman, it's like, well, I've just got like a minute. Wait, can you hang on a second? And you see him put his hand over the thing and he'll say, hey, Bill, go ahead. Tell that customer Friday is okay. Okay, I'm back. What'd you want again now? And then usually while I'm talking to them, there's constant interruptions where he's dealing with his customers. And I went, that guy is going to be in business next year.
Yeah, because that wasn't a fluke that his attention was needed that much. I've got a couple of really special guns, but before we do that, I want to remind everyone of the ammo contest we have going on. It's Guess the Count. Logan, you're on camera right now. You are going to showcase.
Fair enough.
Can you give me a little bit of that? What's the lady from Wheel of Fortune?
Vanna, yeah.
Vanna.
What am I showcasing?
The ammo. Can you Vanna White that? Yeah.
Oh,
so
this ammo.
You're going to go to Facebook.com/Liberty Tree Guns. We have a picture of that up. You're going to guess how many rounds are in the container. The closest guess will get to take that home. And we have some rules there. If we have a tie, we'll have a tiebreaker. We'll explain some of those rules in the comments there. But this is our first episode with a Logan cam. And
so far, no regrets.
Yeah, I'm not used to it yet, though.
Well,
no, you need the Logan cam. Definitely.
Yeah, we didn't dedicate one, but when we got voicemails asking us questions about Logan, we decided we had neglected not having a camera. But since I couldn't decide, I was still on the fence of whether or not you justified a camera. I decided I would make you share it with our new suppressor kiosk.
Not just that.
And the porta potty in the back.
And the porta potty, which is over here.
It did not go unnoticed.
So we have a couple of things. We have a sponsor called Anywhere Porta Potties, who's contributed that porta potty, which is going to be a key part of our show.
It's under construction.
It is a project underway. You will learn more about why there's a teleporta potty here in future shows. But Logan, I don't know if customers are going to be able to use that while it's there, but for the immediate future, that is where that thing belongs. How do you feel sitting next to it?
I'm actually honored.
Well, it does make the shot look better. Helps really fill that out.
Kind of brings out my eyes.
Well, keeps him from being full of poop, too.
I would say it's within reach. How quickly can you get one of those silencers vended out of that thing?
Yeah, we had someone that thought that it spit out silencers. They thought it was like a vending machine.
And it spits them out.
What, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later? What's the timeline on those things?
Trevor, I overheard. I thought you had something prepared for.
Oh, I did. I mean, as close as they are together, I'd almost say that they're like new best friends. I'm just gonna make up a song on the spot.
Okay.
They're new best friends. They're new best friends. Blah blah blah.
Logan and the kiosk are new best friends. All right. Now that we've made full use of the Logan cam, we've talked about the giveaway. Roy, while we still have you, I want to show you a couple what I think are really special guns and get your take on it. But Logan, we're going to need Gary, if you can run and grab him and then bring that over with you. Roy, I don't want to stereotype you, but
he will.
But you mentioned your age, and you got the mustache for it. I have to assume you're the kind of man that can appreciate a good 1911.
No, I wouldn't know anything about 1911s or the fact that they're all over my desk right here.
I was going to say, I thought I saw one in the background there.
So there's another one there.
That's that mount yours. So I'm going to get Gary, which is a guy that has turned out to be a fantastic salesman for me. He had no sales background. He worked in the concrete business, and we just gave him a try, his interview. We weren't even sure. We just said, let's put this guy on the sales floor and see what's happened. And he's turned out to be one of my most productive salesmen. But he got this this old Colt in, and I'm actually going to pass it back to him. But this is an example of came with a holster and everything of the kind of stuff that we get in inventory from time to time. This is a old original Colt. And most of our viewers now, unless they're on the podcast, which you can get the podcast on all your favorite players, are able to see what we're broadcasting here. Can you see this gun?
Yeah, good Lord. Yeah, my gosh. That's incredible. Is that original finish on that thing? That's beautiful.
Yes. Let me pass this to Gary. And Gary, you worked with this guy over time, and you know the story behind this gun. Is that right?
Yes. The customer had come in. His stepdad was in World War I, and he had a buddy that was an armor. So he had him send each individual piece by piece back overseas, and then when he got out and came back to the States, he wound up with this, which...
What year was it?
1918. This was manufactured 1918.
And can you hold it up a little bit? You can kind of see Gary. We're throwing him on the spot, but hey, good job. You verified what's original and what's not on this gun, right?
Yes. All numbers match on the lower and on the slide. And one thing that I did find, it has a Singer barrel. For those of you who don't know, in 1930. Yes, in 1939, the U.S. War Department contracted the Singer sewing machine manufacturer to produce 500 of these guns. The ones that were manufactured by Singer are some of the most sought after 1911 A1s right now. So if you think about this, there's a Singer original out there missing its barrel because it's in this gun. So,
they did have some extra parts though that they made 500 guns, and then they released the rest of the parts out. I was at the John Browning Museum, and they had a Singer there. It's pretty remarkable. I think the last one that sold for in the $140,000 mark. Was a Singer.
That's incredible.
Yes, sir.
Would you believe that this gun, 1911 kind of gives you the timeline as far as when this was brought into production and put into use, but would you imagine that it's still a relevant platform today?
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, because I was able to get a behind-the-scenes look at the Browning Museum 6 or 7 years ago. I wrote it up in American Handgunner. We actually were able to lay our hands on the pre-production prototypes that were manufactured by John Browning. These were what essentially would be the 1910, no external safety. These were handmade tool room production guns, complete with file marks, and you could see where they brazed on more parts. And
I was going to ask you if you could see where that was hand fitted and not really production grade.
Oh no, these are literally John Browning tool room guns. So these guns were actually handled by Browning as they were developing the gun, and it was scary to hold these guns, to realize that was the case. And we asked the docent, we said, could we take these guns apart? Because they just put us in an office, and I had my photo equipment, and he said, sure, you know how to put them back together, right? And we
you don't know if you do, though.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. And so we took there were two guns. One of them had an entirely different operating system. It was really interesting. More like a 1903, gun.
Yeah.
And so we took these apart. And we took these guns apart, and we looked inside, and we saw the file marks, and we realized that these were the guns that the man himself had held. And then later on, I dwelled on just that question, which is, who would have thought that this would still be relevant? And I think it's what we talked about earlier, with which these are the best of times. And so taking that original design and then applying modern technology and engineering to it it is still relevant. We can do the same thing with a Model A Ford versus a modern car, but I think the similarities between the two generations of 1911s are so much closer than the generations of automobiles from then and now, right? They're wonderful.
That's what's kind of amazing to me is like until we, I asked you what's new, what's got your attention, and you kind of, well, everything's good. I think until we see the first personal defense lasers, then putting gunpowder inside a little package and firing it out of the barrel of a gun is going to be the technology that we're using. But this piece of history that Gary has here, even though we get stuff like this frequently, I'm a little cautious when I pick that one up. You treat it with a little more care. I can't imagine holding one of John Browning's actual prototypes. I would be nervous like Trevor is when you try to hand him a baby. He doesn't want to take the baby because he's afraid he'll drop it.
That's true.
I have to say it was thrilling. Is what it really was thrilling, and we felt the presence of him because we were there in blanking on the city there, so we were where his shop were, we were where he grew up, we were where his family was, and the museum also has tools, a sample of his tool room set up. In other words, they just moved the whole thing into the museum, so we were able to actually see where they worked, and it was such a wonderful feeling, and it was emotional. And that's something that we real gun guys get, and gun women get. But I think a lot of people would misinterpret that. They wouldn't quite understand that. I don't think you get that from a skateboard or a baseball mitt. When you see something like that, when a family heirloom gun, or we also saw the high power prototypes that don't even really look like high powers, but they were there too. We were able to look at those and handle them. And the history truly does come alive in those hands, and so I think that's what you're feeling when you have a gun like that. Although if I were you, I would go out and shoot it because it won't hurt it.
Yeah, we should document that. Do you want to do that, Gary?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take it home and shoot it.
It won't hurt anything. There's a Luger, a German Luger in 45 ACP. It's one of two that they know exist still from the 1911 testing that went on. When the military was trying to find which gun they were going to buy. So Savage sent some guns, and so did Luger. And so I think it was 10 or 12 guns, but they only know where two are, one of them for sure. And the collector who owns it, it's probably worth about $1 million, and he shoots it.
Well, you can't blame him.
Cool.
I mean,
I know.
I can't hardly, if I buy a gun in a new caliber, I have to buy the ammo to even haul it home, because I just have to think, well, if I needed to or wanted to, I want to be able to shoot this gun. But I've got another one, and Gary, since you're there and you've taken over Logan's, and by the way, you didn't have the headphones on yet, but before you came up, I was giving you high praises.
Thank you.
Just want to let you know that I appreciate everything you do for our company.
I appreciate you letting me have a job.
You bet. Bring that over here, if you would. Yeah, that one right there. Let me see if you could tell what you're looking at here, Roy.
I'll get my glasses ready.
You won't need them. You won't need them.
We'll get to the big camera here.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very cool. That's funny. We had one of those on the police department. We used to check it out and go shoot it all the time.
Well, this particular example is a 1928 fully transferable full auto machine gun.
That is so cool.
So
I hope you shoot that too.
I did get a chance to shoot it. In fact, Trevor could probably dig up the video of that. Our episode before last was all about machine guns, and since then we've actually gotten 4 full auto machine guns in our inventory, which a lot of people don't realize that you can own. And so we have these. This is again another example of getting a piece of history. I wanted to have these in the store, even if not to sell them, which they are for sale, but just because this is worth stopping in for, to see a piece of history like this.
a real one. You know, I have a book which I'll get to you. It's called "The Gun That Made the '20s Roar," and it's the history of that gun. And it'd be really interesting to track the serial number and do the trace to find out the history of that particular gun. You know, to find out the year it was manufactured and things like that, because you could really be holding some really cool history in your hand there.
When you say you have a book, is it your book?
Yeah, it's my book.
You wrote it?
Oh, no, not me personally.
Oh, okay. Well, you're an author. I mean, I thought that was believable that you had written that. But
no,
yeah,
this one is made by a famous collector, and it's got all the information there. I'll make sure that you get it so you can give it a read. We had one that was confiscated when I was a policeman, and we used to check it out, and we would go to the property room and talk them out of all the impounded 45 ACP ammunition, because when the cops would impound partial boxes of ammo, they would just all drop it into ammo cans. So it was this mishmash of all kinds of stuff. And then we would take it, and we had I think we had a full auto Galil, and we had an M2 carbine, and we had some other things like that in the lab. And so we used to just take them out and shoot them like a son of a gun. And I always loved the M2 carbine because you could write your name with it. It was so cool. And then I love the Thompsons because they just kind of chug.
Yeah, that's one of the things we noticed is it's like almost like an old tractor running in your hands. And you know, by the time I was a cop, and this might be why they can't seem to keep cops around anymore, they didn't let us do that kind of fun stuff.
Oh, we would have been arrested today for, I think, most of the stuff we did. You know, but you're right. Everyone's got to stick up their butt nowadays, and it's like they think that cops aren't human, and you need to let, you know, it's like you can have some fun and learn things, you know, without breaking any rules. I was the go-to guy for guns in the field on the police department. Oftentimes, I'd get a radio call that says, "Hey, Roy, would you go check with this officer? He's got some gun that he found or something." And it was always really interesting because you never knew what you were going to come up onto.
People kind of have the misconception that cops are going to be gun experts, and some are, and some don't. You know, we've watched live PD a few times, and they'll pick up a gun on a scene, and they don't know how to clear it. They don't know how to open it, you know, and it varies because we had people when I was in the police academy, from guys like me that grew up with guns, that were interested in guns, that shot them a lot, to people that this was their first time shooting one, was in the police academy on their way to becoming a cop. And so there's a lot of variety.
It was when I joined the military, the first time I fired was in the Army, other than a Red Ryder Daisy BB gun, which I was an Eagle Eye with. I don't want to brag, but...
You know, just saying, though.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to brag, but there's several flies out there without wings, guys.
Well, you know, Roy, to give you perspective, and I think we'll be doing this again in the future if you'll come back. But I want you to get to know Trevor. I hired him for his technical expertise, but he wasn't particularly a gun guy. And so it actually has turned out to be a nice tool when we go out to do things for the show, because he is having the perspective of first experiences with a lot of this stuff. So this was his first time shooting a full auto. And we actually have a clip of me shooting this particular gun, if you can roll it real quick.
On fire.
This is a long version.
Yeah, as I say, you didn't.
Like John Dillinger.
It's funny that you say that, because this is not even the right clip, is it?
Nope, that's the, I think, the one before.
It's funny you say that, Roy, though, because Midwest Tactical is...
We're rolling.
I'll finish up when we get done with this.
All right.
Okay.
It's the real deal. Here we go.
love that sound.
And you can't help but smile. You know, there's the same smile. My grandpa used to get it when he would hook a fish when he's fly fishing. He would just laugh, like all he did was catch a fish, but he couldn't help but smile or laugh. And I feel like when you shoot a full auto, you have, no matter what your attitude was going into it, you're smiling by the end of it.
And, you know, I worked the public affairs unit on the police department for a couple of years, and so I was the guy that if something happened, they would come and stick a microphone in your face and say, "Can you tell me what happened today with the police in the field?" And if I knew that I was about to do a kind of a sensitive gun issue, I would call the local media television team and get them out to the range, and I would let everybody shoot the Thompson or something like that. Let everybody shoot a machine gun. And they would always just look at you and just go, "Man, that was fun. Can I do it again?"
Change their attitude.
Change their attitude, and then we would talk about, it's hard to judge people. Sometimes you never know. We'd shoot some other guns. Let them shoot the FATS machine, which was the old training.
Yeah, that's still a thing. They still FATS machine. Yeah.
So we used to let them do that too. And then invariably, though, that night on the 11 o'clock news, we'd have a really balanced news report. And of course, they would always try to work in a little footage of them shooting the Thompson.
Right.
Cool.
But
you make friends with everybody if you have a machine gun.
That's absolutely true.
That's all it takes to bring the world together, guys.
Well, Roy, we're going to wrap this up. Let me know, do you have any parting thoughts?
Good Lord, no, my brain is cloudy enough. Let me remind listeners, though, that if they go to AmericanHandgunner.com/KZRG, if you can maybe put that, in somewhere.
We'll drop that. We'll drop that link in the show notes.
They can get a free download of our survival special edition, which actually it's pretty good. It's applicable to a lot of what's been going on. It might go in the future, but that's a freebie from me to you guys and your customers and clients. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come aboard, and I look forward to coming back to visit again if you'll have me.
Thank you very much. And that is quite a gift, because the American Handgunner is not a small player in the gun magazine world. They are one of the major ones, and it's a subscription based. So normally you have to pay money to get that magazine. So Roy, what a great gift for you to have given our viewers for the Gun Shop Show. I want to thank you so much for all the time you spent with us, and I want to ask, are you willing to come back on another show?
Absolutely, especially if you have the porta potty placed appropriately.
We will have the porta potty. It's going to be more involved than you think, and by the next time you come on, we'll take the porta potty for a spin.
I don't know how to end this now.
That's it. That's all you need.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for coming on. We appreciate you. As always, you can get the podcast on all the major podcast platforms: iTunes, Google Play Music, Pandora, Spotify, TuneIn. You can also find it on YouTube, as well as Facebook.com/LibertyTreeGuns, and always live on Saturday mornings on News Talk KZRG.
The Gun Shop Show, the Gun Shop Show. What is it? We don't know. The Gun Shop Show, the Gun Shop Show. Here we go, it's the Gun Shop Show.